All right, so we're gonna be in Revelation 6, and I'm just gonna review it again. So we opened the first seal, remember? We're gonna open 7 seals. And the first one was what?
White horse.
A white horse. Here's an artist picture of the 4 horsemen. It's called the Apocalypse. There's a white horse, a red horse, a black horse, and a pale horse. Now, the white horse is believed to be someone, it says that he who sat on it had a bow and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering to conquer. And so it's believed that this is an antichrist on this white horse. It is not Jesus. When Jesus comes back, he's planting his feet. And this guy here, he has a bow but no arrows, which means there's some kind of peace treaty on paper. That's all it means. It's something that's going to happen. He's going to make the world believe that there's peace everywhere and victory, but it's going to be a victory on paper. And you know, we've also heard some of that going on in our lifetime, you know, these peace treaties and all that stuff. And that's what this is. And another thing, again, I'm not condemning. I don't want anyone to, you know, send me an email about this, but it says a crown was given to him. He was given leadership. He was like a president or somebody. Now, a lot of people, this is where people are going to get upset with me. A lot of people believe it's Catholicism, the Pope. The Pope is called Father. The Pope wants confession made to him. The Pope wears a white robe. He wears a crown. A crown is given to him. White is the official color. He's called Father. He must have confessions, and people must confess to him. A lot of people think that this white horse represents Catholicism, and we deal with that a lot today. So that's very interesting. So that white horse comes, and he's giving false peace to the earth, but then a red horse comes. What's the red horse? What does it bring? Y'all remember?
War.
It brings war. That's right. Red for blood. And it says he's going to take peace from the earth. So whoever's on this white horse doing the treaty, or whatever it is false, because the red horse comes behind it and there's war. And it says that people will kill one another. Now, a lot of people believe, a lot of scholars, I have to share that because this is the stuff you guys hear all the time. Well, I've heard this, I've heard that. They believe it's communism, the red horse. And the color red is represented by China, and China is a country that's communism, right? Which means you make all people the same. So the red horse is coming in making war to make everybody the same. So there's going to be some kind of war that's going to do that, unless that war has already happened. So we're going to have false peace and some kind of war to make everybody the same is what they believe. Then because there's war in the land gets torn up when there's war, there's famine. There's no food, there's no crops, everything is torn up. I mean, think about Israel. They don't have anything, you know. So the black horse represents death by starvation. And it's capitalism. The USA is capitalism. Our country is. And that means unequal distribution of wealth. You know, we have wealthy people, we have poor people. We have everything in between. And that's all that means. But this black horse represents that. You've got the white horse with false peace, the red horse who brings in war. Then you've got this black horse that brings in famine because there was war. But then it says that a quart of wheat for a denarius, 3 quarts of barley for a denarius. So what they're talking about is people, he has scales in his hand. So people have to go to him or to this country or whatever it may be, and they have to have their food weighed. They only get so much. We talked about that last week with COVID. You know, the toilet paper was an issue. When we have hurricanes, you can only have so many pieces of wood at Home Depot or water or whatever the case may be. But that's how it would be constantly. That's what I'm saying. We've seen a little bit of that. And God doesn't do all of this, boom. He could destroy the earth in one thing, but he doesn't. He does little by little by little by little. That's why we've seen some of this. It's little by little. It's like a woman who's pregnant. You know, she's pregnant, but the labor pains come on weak at the beginning, but they get stronger and stronger and stronger until she delivers the baby. And so that's kind of what Revelation is like, what the tribulation is like. So then the last horse is a pale horse. And this pale horse is sickness. He says, look, I behold a pale horse, and the name of him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed him. So death and hell. And power was given to him, now get this, over a fourth of the earth. Not the whole earth. Again, that's where we think, well, am I here or am I not here? It's over a fourth of the earth. To kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. Now, this pale horse represents sickness and death, but it only is going to destroy a quarter of the earth. A fourth of it. And pale in the Greek is porous. I think I told you that last week, which is yellow-green. There are no greener horses. I guess you could call some of them yellow. But this horse is a pale yellowish. That's what it's saying. The official color for Islam is green. And this will destroy a quarter of the earth. That kind of makes sense to us nowadays, doesn't it? Where I always say this over and over again, it wouldn't make sense to our grandparents. They probably had a heck of a time with Revelation. But we recognize a lot of it, don't we? And that's what that means. The rider is death. The rider does not mind dying when he kills. This rider is death. He's gonna he doesn't mind killing, and he don't mind being killed. He will kill with the sword. Beheadings is what he is known to do, and Islam is known for that. So this could be something that we see now. It's not destroying the whole world. That's what a lot of people falsely think about in Revelation. It's going to destroy the whole world in a minute. No. It's a little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit. Does that make sense? Any questions? Is it too hard? All right. Now, I wanted to share this with you guys too. When Jesus was on earth, this is in all the Gospels. I think, but maybe one of them's not. Maybe John. But anyway, when Jesus was on earth, some of his disciples came to him, and they came to him privately. I shared this in one of my LOLs if y'all read it. They came to him privately, which I pick up on that. They're getting him away from the crowd. And I don't like to go to other books, but I want to share this with you. The disciples come to him privately. They said, tell us, like it's a secret, when these things will be. What will be the sign of your coming? They want him to tell them privately what is the sign of him coming. They want to know. And of the end of age. And Jesus said, take heed that no one deceives you. Many will come in my name saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. Well, that could represent the white horse. We've seen lots of people coming in the name of Christ saying they're Christ and deceiving people. I had a lady one time tell me that, Jesus was coming. I mean, we've had so many crazy things like that, and was it 88 things in 88 when Jesus was coming? Yeah. And this lady said she drank some kind of water at the church and her mouth turned green and her teeth turned green, and that was a sign that Jesus was coming. And these people, I think they had to put something in the water to make people's mouth turn green. But I mean, it was just ridiculous stuff. So Jesus is telling his disciples, this is in the Gospels, and he's saying, then he's going to come saying that they're me, but they're not. So that's one sign. He said, you'll hear wars and rumors of wars. What horse is that? The red horse. You're going to hear wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not troubled, Jesus says. For all these things must come to pass. You're going to hear it. But the end isn't yet. And then he says, nation will rise against nation. As I finish teaching this, I'm going to show you lots of nations and what's going on with the nations. Nations will rise against nations, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines. Remember the black horse and the pale horse, the famines, and earthquakes in various places. Have we heard a lot of earthquakes in our lifetime? Like they say, this is the worst one we've ever heard of. And so he says, but this is the beginning of sorrows. So I feel like we'll be here for that, because he's telling his disciples this is the beginning of sorrows. These are your signs. They're signs to us. But he doesn't appoint us to wrath. The four horsemen, they're called the apocalypse, is very intense. Y'all have any questions about them? So the first 4 seals were open. So now we're going to open the 5th seal. Remember our little thing here? Our scroll. We're going to open the 5th one. All right, so we're going to be in chapter 6, verse 9. And somebody read that one verse if you will.
When the Lamb opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of everyone who had been killed for speaking God's message and telling about their faith.
All right, so what seal did he open? The 5th one, number 5. And what's an altar? What's an altar? What's it used for?
Worship.
Worship. Okay. And what about when they would kill an animal back in the Bible? Okay, a sacrifice, right? All right, so he says he opens the 5th seal, and under the altar, he sees this altar, the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for their testimony. Those are martyred people. I like this artist picture. It shows a altar. It shows a whole bunch of people under the altar. So first of all, we're learning that there's a special place in heaven for the people who have been martyred. They get to be under the altar. They get to be there because they've sacrificed their life, just like animals sacrifice their life. So under the altar, he sees the martyred souls, and they're all there together. I think that's pretty cool. These people were killed for their faith. We've heard a lot about that in our lifetime, haven't we? About people being killed for their faith. And they weren't all martyred at the same time. It's a lifetime of the souls being martyred. But when they were in heaven, that's where they get to be, is under the altar. That's a very special place because the altar of God is very close to him. They sacrificed their life for Christ. Now in 6:10, I see a little bit of evidence here. You guys don't always have to agree with me, but in 6:10, what are these martyred souls doing? Somebody want to read that?
They cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth?
All right, so they're crying with what kind of voice? Loud. They're in heaven and they're crying out with a loud voice. And they want God to avenge his blood. It sounds like they're wanting revenge for themselves, but no, they want it for God. That's why they were martyred, because they stood up for Christ. And so they're still standing up for Christ because they want those people on the earth to be in trouble for that. That's what they're asking. But they say, how long until you judge and avenge our blood on who?
Those who dwell on the earth.
On those who dwell on the earth. That's evidence to me that we're not here. He's not going to avenge his blood on us, on those who dwell on the earth. That has to be lost people. People who martyred Jesus' people. That's just a little evidence right there. Those who dwell on the earth. If God's going to judge and avenge the martyrs' blood on those who dwell on the earth, then those dwelling on the earth are not Christians. We have to be gone. All right? So, the martyrs are crying because they want vindication of the word of God. These souls do not want revenge for themselves. They want revenge for what people have done to Christ. That's what they want. They want Christ to fix the injustice against himself. But Christ isn't ready for that. So what does he tell them in verse 11? Just like we would tell a child. What does he say there?
Then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were was completed.
So God's telling them, shh, little children, settle down. Resting a little longer. He's telling them their fellow servants and brethren are the people who are going to become Christians during the tribulation. There's going to be a lot of people who become Christians, and a lot of people will be martyred. And so Christ is telling them to settle down because there's going to be a whole bunch more of y'all coming. They will be martyred. He says there are more who are going to join them. And it says that they were given a white robe, but their souls. How can a soul wear a white robe? Does anybody have an idea? No right or wrong answer, but he says they were given, he saw the souls of the martyred people, but they were given a white robe.
Maybe you're given a new body, because our bodies down here, they break down and.
Right? That we're gonna be in an immaterial state. We're gonna be able to wear robes and crowns. We're gonna be able to talk. You know, John's talking to everybody up there. And, you know, he's crying, he's fainting. And there's no tears in heaven, but John's just going around telling us and showing us everything. So they hear, they see, they think, they talk, they ask questions. More than likely, this is their robe that they will wear in the marriage to Jesus Christ. And this is going to be their robe. And it says, will there be more people who are going to be killed and martyred for Christ, does he say? Yeah, there's going to be more. Does he know the number? Look back at verse 11. Does he know the number?
Until the complete number.
So he knows it. Until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren. He knows that number. Okay? That's all there is. You've opened the fifth seal. It's super easy. You got 4 horses, and then you see the martyred souls. Learn that, know that. You know, you've already learned about 7 churches. I think y'all got that. You've learned about the throne room, and you've learned about 5 seals. You got it. It's not hard. Okay? So in verse 12, John says, I look, and he, capital H, opened the 6th seal. We're on the 6th seal now. He opened the 6th seal. And behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood. And the stars of heaven fell to the earth like the fig trees. When a fig tree blows in the wind, the figs just fall. So he sees the sun and the moon and the stars are doing something crazy. And it's very alarming to him. Sackcloth is a rough cloth. It's usually made of goat's hair. It's very thick. There's no way to see through it, the sackcloth. But John sees that. And here's an artist's picture. I'm not crazy about this picture, but it shows the sun as blood, the moon as black, and then the stars falling like figs. And it says, here's evidence here too. Verses 14 through 17, the sky receded back as a scroll. When did the waters go back? Remember the waters parted? The Red Sea. So now the sky recedes as a scroll when it's rolled up, he said. And every mountain and island was moved out of its place. And the kings of the earth, now listen to who these people are. The kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave, every free man, they hid themselves in the caves and in rocks and in mountains. And they said to the mountains and the rock, they were begging the mountains and the rocks, just fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath has come. Who is able to stand it? To me, this is evidence because he's saying all these people are hiding from Christ. Do we hide from Christ?
No.
Never. Never. We run to him. We don't hide from him. And right here, when this,
Sometimes we try to.
Sometimes we try to, that's right, Chloe. So the stars are falling, the moon is black, the sun is red, or vice versa, however I got that wrong. But he says the men are running. They see things going on and they're running. And they want to hide from him. And it says, hide us from him who sits on the throne. Well, Christians would not hide from God. God's people don't hide from him. Unbelievers will be mad with fear because it'll be the first time that they actually recognize God, and they're going to panic. Now in Thessalonians, it says that God has not appointed us to wrath. That's in verse 110. He says we have not been appointed to wrath, so we're not going to suffer God's wrath. He doesn't say something and then change his mind. And then in Revelation 3:10, he tells us that he will keep us from the hour of the trial that's going to come upon the whole earth. He's going to keep us from it. You know, like I said before, if he hides us in a closet or whatever, I don't know, but I think we'll be gone. He's going to keep us from it, and he doesn't appoint us to wrath, and wrath is coming. They're afraid of their lamb, so they're hiding. All right, one time Zeb was preaching, and he said the only hell a Christian will face is here on earth. And I thought that just stuck with me because it's true. Sometimes we do face that on earth. but he said that's the only time that we'll have to face that, because as Christians, you know, we have eternity with Christ.
There's a lot of times we feel like we're in hell on earth when certain things happen to us.
That's right.
And tragedies happen to us. And
That's right.
things like that. But that's God working.
That's right. All right, so we're going to move on to chapter 7. So y'all did chapters 1 through 3 were the churches, 4 was the throne room, 5 and 6 were the first 5 seals. 6 seals. Okay, so we're at a pause because we haven't opened the 7th seal yet. And in Revelation 7:1 it says, after these things, well, John always says that. So like he's told us about the first 6 seals, but he says, but after these things, I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth. Does that mean the earth is square? No. Holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth or the sea or any tree. The earth, the sea, or a tree. That's pretty interesting. So if he's got these 4 angels holding the 4 corners of the earth, what is he trying to say? What direction? What are we talking about? Can y'all get that? Okay, it's north, south, east, and west. Okay, so these 4 angels are holding back the winds. The winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, the sea, or any tree. I think it kind of makes me laugh when it talks about a tree, because you're talking about the earth, the sea, and then you talk about a tree. So I explained before that this study is like looking at a group of pictures. You know, you're on a trip and you're looking at this set of pictures, and that set of pictures, and that set of pictures, the same trip. And this is kind of how John is now. It's kind of like we're looking at another set of pictures all of a sudden. And we haven't opened our 7th seal. So he has these angels holding the north, south, east, and west winds. Everything's got to be still. The 4 angels are holding the winds. The atmosphere is still. Now here's some more evidence in verses 2 and 3. Does anyone want to read that so you don't have to constantly listen to my voice? Revelation 7, 2 and 3.
Then I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea, saying, do not harm the earth, the sea, or the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads.
All right, to me this is evidence here. There's 4 angels that are granted to harm the earth. And he says, to the 4 angels granted to harm the earth, don't harm the earth or the sea or the trees, because I got to seal the servants of God on their foreheads. Do y'all know of any other seal in the Bible, in Revelation, that talks about, who's copying that?
The devil.
Satan, that's right, because he wants to put the mark 666. We'll talk about that later. But he says here, God's going to mark 144,000. It doesn't mean there's only 144,000 of God's children that are saved. Some believe that they preach about the 144,000. They believe that's all that's going to heaven. But if they really believe that, then that's ridiculous, because there's more of them than 144,000. So they're even saying they're not all going to heaven. So he's going to seal his servants of God. And history said, you know, teaches us about a king, and he has a signet ring. When he does a letter or something, he dips it in wax and he seals the envelope. But this showed protection, authority, is mine, possession. So God is going to put a mark on 144,000 people, whether it's a spiritual mark that he sees, or it's really, you know, a mark. I don't know. But I would imagine it's some kind of a spiritual mark that he has for his servants. So what's happened is, here's a good picture of the 144,000 being sealed. And to me, this means that we're in heaven, and God is sending 144,000 to the earth to preach the gospel to the lost people. That's why he's sending 144,000. There's lost people, a whole bunch of them are going to be saved, a whole bunch of them is going to be martyred, but God sends 144,000 to preach the gospel to the earth. All right? Don't let that confuse you. That's all it says. All right. So he said, and everybody wants to know what the seal is. Well, it's the name. It's his name. His father's name written on their foreheads is what it says. It tells us that in 14:1, I think. He says, I look and behold a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 having the Father's name written on his forehead. Again, I don't know if you can see it or if it's a spiritual thing. Satan is the same thing. He copies God because his can be a mark, a name, or the number of his name. A lot of people miss that. I'll teach that later. It's not just 666. It can be a mark, his name, or the number of his name. There's 3 ways for Satan to do that. A lot of people miss that. They only talk about 666. Well, that's not all there is to it. There's 3 ways. But God, he mimics Christ because Christ is going to seal his 144,000 people to preach the gospel to the lost world. And then he goes on and tells us from each tribe how he seals 12,000 from each tribe. And that's, Joseph, Naphtali, Benjamin, all of them, Issachar, Zeb, Manasseh, Benjamin, Reuben, Levi, all of them. And what that is Jacob was a man, and Jacob had 12 sons. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. So a lot of times when we're talking about Israel in the Bible, you're not talking about the place, you're talking about the man, Israel, okay? Jacob's name was changed to Israel. So Israel had 12 sons, and they became the 12 tribes. So when God seals 144,000, he takes 12,000 out of each tribe. And if you know your math, that equals 144,000. Each son had a tribe, and they take 12,000 from each tribe. And the scripture tells us about that. And here's another artist picture. It's got all the 12 tribes of the 144,000 down there at the bottom, just kind of grouped together. And they come to the earth to preach the gospel. So then he says, and here, to me this is more evidence in verses 9 and 10. He says, after these things I looked, he's fixing to seal these guys, and John gets to see that. The atmosphere has to stand still. These guys are going to get sealed. He said, after these things I looked and behold a great multitude, which no one could number. Now, there's a lot of numbering in the book of Revelation, but he says no one could number this, of all nations, tribes, and people. So if you were put together with people from different nations, different tribes, and peoples, and tongues, were they all going to be like you? No, it's from everywhere, from all nations, all tribes, all people, all tongues, standing before the throne of God, the Lamb clothed in white robes. There's going to be all these people, too many to count, standing before God, and they're crying in a loud voice. Salvation belongs to God who sits on the throne. And the angels stood around the throne, and the elders and the living creatures, they fall on their faces. So John gets to see these guys, they're getting sealed, and then all of a sudden he sees all those people up in heaven. Those 12 tribes were the same blood type. They started out as brothers and the same type of person. So if only 12 tribes who were sealed are going to heaven, 144,000 of them, then how could there be all nations, tribes, and tongues standing before the throne? Too many of them to count. Because so many people became saved. It's not just the exclusion of them, like some people think it's just 144,000 that's going to heaven. That's ridiculous. Are y'all lost? Not yet.
And they were all Jews.
They were all Jews.
We're out, if that's true.
They were all Jews. But it just shows that there were so many of, that was my point. They were all Jews from those tribes. But then it says, that's why he said it that way. Then he says, but I saw all these people and nations, tribes, and tongues. They're different from these guys. So there were so many people saved. And that's what he's saying. It wasn't just these guys, they proclaimed the gospel and lots of people became saved of nations, tribes, and tongues. We only have about 10 minutes, so y'all make it. What does one of the elders say to him when he sees all these people in verse 13?
Then one of the elders answered, saying to me,
So we just learned that there's so many that can't count, and they're before Christ, and they're singing, and they've got their white robes on, and an elder asked John's just visiting, you know, he's up there flitting around getting to see everything, and one of the elders comes up to him and says, who are all these people? I mean, that's funny.
Maybe he was the elder that asked you.
Yeah, that's right. He said, who are these people? And to me, there's evidence in verse 14. And because John said, I said to him, sir, you know. So he said to me, these are the ones who came out of the great tribulation. See, I didn't lie to y'all. Did they come out of the great tribulation? This multitude of people that you can't count that are going to be saved? Right, there's your verse. Some people say there's nobody going to be saved during tribulation. Well, yeah, there is. These are the ones who came out of the great tribulation and washed their robes and made them white with the blood of the Lamb. Isn't that nice to know that there will be people saved? They come out of the tribulation. They were saved during the tribulation. They're now in heaven. Tribulation, we're learning. And that's another thing, that's why it's confusing. We're getting to learn all of it. You know, I believe we're gone, but we get to learn all that happened on earth, and we experience some of all this that happened on earth. Was and is to come. It's hard to wrap your head around it because we want it to flow like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or A, B, C, D, E, F, and it doesn't. So you just have to sit in that. And he said, they're before the throne of God. They serve him day and night. They will neither hunger anymore or thirst anymore. The sun won't strike them, nor the heat. It's talking about the sun and the moon and the famine and all that. Nothing's going to happen to these people anymore because they're up here with him. These folks were suffering on earth, but now they're safe in heaven. And it says the Lamb who sits on the throne will lead them to fountains of living water, and God will wipe away every tear. Y'all ever heard that God will wipe away your tears? These people were in a bad way, or will be, in the tribulation. They're going to be suffering. A lot of them will be martyred for Christ. And so he's going to wipe away their tears, so when they get to heaven, there won't be any more tears. They come that way. They're heavy-hearted, but he says he'll wipe away their tears. And he's going to give them living fountains of water. Y'all want to finish it up, or you want to stop? How many minutes do we have? About 8? You want to go a little further? This is going to get into what I wanted to share with y'all next week. So now he's going to open the 7th seal. And there's silence in heaven for about a half an hour. This is where men love to joke because they say, well, there's no women in heaven if there's silence in heaven. If your preacher quit preaching totally for like 10 minutes and just stood there, wouldn't that be kind of weird, kind of eerie? Well, he says there's silence in heaven for a half an hour. I share this because I tried it. I got on my porch, took my work with me, and I tried to have complete silence for I was going to do 30 minutes. It didn't last 2 minutes. The birds chirping, horn honks, the squirrels, there's no such thing. But here he says he opens the 7th seal, finally get to the 7th one, and there's silence in heaven for about a half an hour. And then he says, I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and they're given 7 trumpets. So he sees these 7 angels, and they're each given a trumpet. There's musical instruments in heaven. This is a small picture of the 7 angels with the trumpets, but they're all just alike. They're perfectly matched. They're just completely in order, these seven angels. And John gets to see them. And he says, again, to me, there's evidence between scriptures, verses 3 and 6. That another angel having a golden censer, a censer is this little thing that holds like ashes. He came and he stood at the altar, and he was given much incense. What did I teach y'all incense meant? Prayers of the saints. They're a sweet aroma, a sweet smell to the Lord. And it says here, he was given much incense that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the altar. And the smoke of the incense, the prayers of the saints ascended before God. And this dadgum angel took this censer and he threw it to the earth. So it's saying like grandma prayed for y'all. Grandma, everybody prayed. And And so everybody's in heaven, all those prayers are put in this censer. I didn't get a picture of the censer. Are put in the censer and this angel throws it to the earth. Why? Because there's lost people on the earth. And it's kind of showing us that the prayers from heaven get thrown onto the earth, to the lost people. Isn't that cool? And there were noises and thunders and lightnings, and the seven angels are lining up to get ready to blow their trumpets. You know, we wouldn't receive a censer filled with our prayers thrown on us. We must be in heaven, and our prayers are thrown on the lost people here on earth. Now, under the 7 seals is the 7 trumpets. So we're on the 7th seal. This is the seal. The 7th diamond here. Not really, but for us. It's open, but under here now is 7 trumpets. How many 7s have y'all learned so far?
Lots.
You've learned 2. The 7 churches and the 7 seals. All right, now you're going into the 7 trumpets. I can only go 5 minutes worth.
But didn't the lamb have 7 horns when we got to the
He did. He did have 7 horns. And that's a complete number for Jesus, the Lamb. And I'm going to teach you guys about what the horns mean when we get to the governments and stuff. So the first angel sounded in verse 7, and what happens?
And hail and fire followed before with blood, and they were thrown to the earth, and 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up.
All right, so now we're fixing to hear, we heard a quarter were killed with the pale horse, but now we're going to do 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. It doesn't get done all at once. This first angel sounds, and fire mingled with blood. They were thrown to the earth. Hail and fire. So if you had to mix hail and fire, what would you think that was?
Okay.
A volcano? What else? Anybody else have any?
But if it's
Hail.
It's like ice and
Right,
fire.
Storm with hail in it.
Thunderstorm. That's right.
a volcano in the sea.
A volcano in the sea. Okay.
Water.
And he says this is thrown to the earth. We're not here, I don't believe. We're in heaven. And 1/3 of the trees are burned up. That's giving people another chance. Just 1/3 of the trees are burned up. And all the green grass were burned up. It matches Genesis when God says, let the earth bring forth grass, the herbs, the yields, the seeds, the fruit. And Moses stretched out his rod. Do y'all remember that? And the hail rained from Egypt. There was hail and fire mingled with hail. They match. Constantly, Revelation and Genesis match. We're almost done, but I'm going to give you one thing before we go. This is something that I want to share with you. I'm not teaching this, but I love it enough to share it. Only because it really puts us in a big thought pattern. And next week I'll finish it. I'm going to pause here with you to say what some people, or what I discovered when I studied of things that have happened in the world. You know, but I don't know if we're forcing it to line up or if it really does line up. I'm not teaching this, I'm sharing this with y'all. So don't go home, or if you're watching the video, don't say that I said this is what happened, because I'm not, okay? It has been said, like I said before, that the Great Tribulation doesn't have to go in 7 consecutive years. It could just be over a lifetime. So here we go. The trumpet that we just heard about. The first angel sounded, hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth. And 1/3 of the trees are burned up, and all the green grass is burned up. Now, this hail and fire mixed with blood falling to the ground, and approximately 33% of all the grass and trees in the world were destroyed. Now listen to me, this is very interesting. During World War I, large amounts of artillery shells and chemical agents were released on troops for the first time in history through modern warfare, killing 8 million people. This verse states that hail and fire mingled with blood is exactly what the shells and chemical agents look like to those people. Soldiers on both sides burned vast tracts of land to eliminate natural, like they would come through and they'd see like maybe a plow, and they would just try to get rid of all of that so that they couldn't make weapons. So they would eliminate natural or man-made items for their enemies to use. France and Germany have a policy which was to burn everything up. They really did that. And it was called the scorched earth policy. A lot of scholars think that's trumpet number 1. Did I make sense? This is real. You can look it up. Scorched earth policy is real. And they believe the scorched earth policy matches trumpet number 1. I'll stop there. Every trumpet I have a match like that to show y'all that you've seen or your grandparents have seen. Isn't that cool? Very interesting. All right. Did I just touch that red button? Maybe? Get off this thing.